fellow mathematicians, welcome back to another video, quadratic functions yet again. And if you want to learn more about quadratic functions, link to the playlist in the description, as well as up here in the info box. As always, there's everything in there that you're ever going to need on quadratic functions during your school life, so check it out. It's definitely worth it. So last time around, I talked about the monic form and the generalized form of a quadratic function, and I said that there's also something called the vertex form. But we can't just get to the vertex form in one step, because for this you might want to know about completing the square. And we're going to go through the process of completing a square on a monic form today, step by step, with the use of an example. And later there are going to come out separate videos on practice sessions, basically, to practice this a tiny little bit more, because from my experience I know that nearly all students have a bunch of problems with completing the square. They are not able to grasp the idea fully without going through a lot of exercises. And also we are going to take a look at the generalized form of a quadratic equation and turning this into a vertex form by completing the square. So with a factor a in the front. But this is for another day. Today we're just going to take a look at completing the square in and of itself. So what is completing the square? At first I would like to take a step back and take a look at the binomial formulas. Okay, the two most important ones that you probably learn about at school. The first one is of the form x plus y squared. And this is nothing but x plus y times x plus y, and by using the distributive laws you are going to notice that this is nothing but x squared plus 2xy plus y squared. And there's also a second one, okay, that could come into play while completing the square. This is the one with a negative sign between x and y. And all of this squared, obviously. And now you just need to think about what happens if we plug a negative sign in front of the y right here. I mean, x squared is not going to change at all. Then we are going to have positive 2 times x times negative y. Positive times negative is negative, so negative 2xy. And negative y squared is negative times negative is positive, so positive y squared. And now we are going to suppose, after once again writing those binomial formulas out, that we have a certain quadratic function given. Let's say we have the quadratic function given x squared plus x plus 1, which you want to bring into the form of a binomial theorem, kind of. I mean, I hope you can see the similarities. We have an x squared term right here, then we have an x here, okay, on both. We are pretty close to the quadratic formula. But what is missing right here, I mean, we don't have a 2 in front of the x, we also don't have some kind of y that we still need to figure out in some way. This is the main point of doing completion of the square. Meaning what we want to do is we want to turn this right here into some kind of a plus b, basically squared, and most of the time after completing the square you are going to get a plus c out too. Okay, and this plus c is going to be important in our vertex form later in the game, because this is going to be our actual y-intercept that we are going to get. Just like at the beginning we had something x squared plus 3, and this plus 3 was the movement in the y direction, in the positive y direction. Okay, so just keep this in mind. We are going to get a plus c out. Also we are going to get something of the form binomial formula out at first, before the c. Okay, but how can you get from something like this to something like this? What can you possibly do? And for this, here's the first step. You need to identify which binomial theorem you actually want to use for your purposes. I mean, if we compare coefficients, basically, we are going to get x squared. Okay, this is always the same. The only thing that's different is the sign in front of our x term, okay, positive or negative. I mean, we have a positive sign in front of our x, meaning overall we are probably going to make use of the first binomial formula. Okay, now, we got another problem. Where's the 2? Where's the 2 in here? How can you get a 2? And for this, if you don't find anything in front of your x, then what you need to do is you need to write out what's actually in front of it. And what can you multiply by what to leave the what as it was? Okay, what can you multiply by x to leave x how it is? There's only one number that does it. I already said it right now, one number, the number 1. Namely, if there's nothing in front of your x, then that is always a 1. So this is x squared plus 1 times x plus 1. And this right here is a very important step. Okay, even if there's not a 1 in front of your x, is always the same procedure. You can always get yourself this 2 in front by factoring the 2 out of the 1. This can always be done because you can always factor out a number and multiply everything by the reciprocal once again. Maybe you are going to see what I'm getting at here, because this 1 is nothing but 2 times 1/2. Okay? if you have 2 times 0.5, you're going to get 1 overall, which is the 1 in front of our x yet again. If there were a 3 in front of our x, what you would need to do is you would need to drag a 2 out of your 3. Then what you would get is 2 times 3 over 2, because the 2 and the 2 are going to cancel out yet again. This is just what you need to see at some point, but if you talk about stuff like this, you're probably in a higher grade already at school, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem to at least see this. Now, we got our 2, so this is already pretty good. So we got something of the form x squared plus 2 times 1/2 times x, and then we're going to have a plus 1 right here. But there's still something missing for us to get a binomial formula out, namely, what about our y? Okay, we got a y here and a y squared here. But this is not a big problem anymore, because if we just compare stuff, we got an x squared here, we got our 2, we got our x. So the only thing that could be y is our 1/2. Meaning, what we would still need is a plus 1/2 squared, okay, as being our y squared. But hold up. I just added a 1/2 squared to this whole thing. Now the thing is, imagine this side was 3. What I just did is say, okay, 3 is the same as 3 plus 1/2 squared. This is not good. You can just add something to one side of the equation and suppose that it's still true. I mean, 3 is not the same as 3.25. This is just not something that could happen. But there's something you could do, and this is something that mathematicians do a lot. Namely, we are going to add a 0 to an equation, because this really doesn't change anything. If you had 3 on this side and on the other side you had 3 plus 0, then 3 plus 0 is still 3. It wouldn't change anything overall. Meaning, how can we get a 0 all the time? I mean, if I give you 3 apples and take 3 apples away from you, you are still going to have 0 apples overall. This is how you can add a 0. Namely, you can add something to an equation, but at the same time subtract it yet again. Okay? Because 1/4 minus 1/4 is going to be 0 overall, which really doesn't change anything on those sides at all. Meaning, what we did is we added a 0 to this whole thing, changing nothing in the process, but now we came actually extremely far, because what we have here now is our binomial formula that we were striving for. Namely, what is our x? Okay, we just need to compare coefficients now. What is our x? I mean, x is just x, here and there. What is our y? We just now said that our y is nothing but 1/2. So plus 1/2, and don't forget your squared. And now what is left on our equation? I mean, we still have a plus 1, and we also have a negative 1/2 squared. What is 1/2 squared? This is 1/4. So negative 1/4. Ah, cool stuff. I mean, this right here is easy to compute. 1 minus 1/4, expanding this fraction by 4 over 4 is going to give us 4 minus 1 over 4, which is nothing but 3/4. Meaning overall, our polynomial, our quadratic equation, function, whatever that we had up here, is going to turn into x plus 1/2, whole thing squared, plus 3/4. And now we are done completing the square. The best way to check if you are actually right with what you did is to just factor everything out here on this binomial formula, add the 3/4 to it, and see if you get back to what you started with. This is the best way to verify if you are actually correct in your assumptions that you made right here. And yeah, this is the main procedure, and it works like this all the time. Like mentioned before, there are going to come out a few practice sessions over time. Also, we are going to talk about the case when there's some kind of a in front of our x squared term, meaning for example a 2 in front of our x squared term. What are you going to do then? Also, other than that, I'm going to bring out a video where I'm going to tell you how you can see the completing the square basically at a glance without going through all the calculations. Those calculations are just very important if you started out with the topic just now, but keep in mind that there's basically an easier way to see basically at a glance what the completion of the square is going to look like overall. It's going to make your life way easier. But this for another day. I'm going to repeat the procedure once again, step by step, okay, how to complete the square, and I'm going to see you on the video for the vertex form next time around then. Okay, so first things first, you have a quadratic function given, and then you are going to take a look at the sign in front of your x term, okay, just a single x. If it's a positive sign, we're going to use the first binomial formula. If it's a negative sign, we are going to use the second binomial formula. After you're done with that, what you're going to do is you're going to identify what the coefficient of your x is. So what we titled as being p or b before, okay, in previous videos. Then you are going to take a 2 out of all of this. Okay, if there's a 5 in front of your x, it's going to turn into 2 times 5 over 2. If there's a 17 in front of your x, it's going to turn into 2 times 17 over 2 overall, because the 2 and the 1/2 is going to cancel out in the process. Now after you're done with that, you are going to identify what your y is. Your y is just a thing between your 2 and your x. That's what's left. For example, in the other example, 17 over 2 is your y. And what you're going to do then is you're going to add a 0 to your whole equation, with the 0 being nothing but the y squared term minus the same term yet again. And after you're done with that, the part that you have in the front, and please get used to having one scheme of writing everything out, okay, that you go by. And once you've found out what your y is and you track the 2 out, you can immediately read off what your x and your y term are going to be in your binomial formula, bringing everything together in the x plus y squared term. And after that, you're going to be left with a bunch of numbers that you are just going to calculate together, leaving you with the whole completion of the square. And this concludes the video. If you did enjoy this video, please like, subscribe, and comment channel like. If you want to support channel a bit more, buy those teachers I create, support channel on Patreon. Also go over to the main channel too. We got a lot of maths content over there too. Other than that, thank you guys for watching, and please stay safe. Have a flamboyant day. Ciao.